Welcome to my channel again. Today, I will talk about a comedy-adventure movie from 2009 titled, Up. Without further ado, let's get started. Carl Fredricksen is a little child dressed in a vintage pilot's cap and goggles, mimicking his hero, the legendary explorer Charles Muntz. After hearing about a lost world in South America, lurking in the shadows of majestic Paradise Falls, Muntz landed his dirigible, the Spirit of Adventure, for a year-long exploration of the world full of plants and animals, undiscovered by science. When Muntz showed his discovery of a monster of Paradise Falls, the National Explorers Society accused Muntz of fabricating the skeleton. The organization stripped Muntz of his membership. Humiliated, Muntz vowed to return to Paradise Falls with his crew and promised to capture the beast alive. As Carl runs down the street with his balloon, he hears Muntz's slogan from an abandoned house. When Carl enters to look around, he encounters a girl, Ellie, who loves adventure and adores Charles Muntz. Startled by her boisterous, youthful personality, Carl loses his balloon and later falls from the top, causing his arm to fracture. That evening, Ellie sneaks into his bedroom, returns his balloon and shows him her adventure book, in which she professes a dream to one day live on top of Paradise Falls in South America. Before departing, she demands a commitment from Carl that they will travel together one day. Carl and Ellie finally get married and move into the abandoned house where they initially met. They had a happy marriage where Carl worked as a balloon seller and Ellie, a zookeeper. One day, when the couple learns about Ellie's infertility, they decide not to grieve but to save money to visit and live a life in Paradise Falls. As time passes, they are compelled to use their money when additional expenses arise. One day, when Carl realizes that they never kept their vow despite their happy marriage, he plans to surprise Ellie with tickets to South America. But when Ellie's condition deteriorates, she is hospitalized and ultimately dies, leaving Carl alone. As the city expands around him, Carl stays in his house as a retired and bitter loner. Due to the increasing construction, he is persuaded to relocate to a better home, but he frequently quarrels with the building owner and refuses to do so. One day, Russell, a wilderness explorer scout, approaches him and offers to help Carl so he may obtain his "assisting the elderly" badge. When Russell insists, Carl dupes him and instructs him to locate and remove a snipe, a bird with big eyes, which has intruded into his yard. Russell happily agrees to help so he can become the senior wilderness explorer. Before Carl can shut the door, he witnesses a bulldozer striking the mailbox he constructed with his wife, which is worth a treasure for him. Carl hits him over the head with his walker when the worker tries to rectify the mistake. Carl is taken to court after the attack and ordered to leave his house by the following day. The next morning, when the nursing staff members come to pick him up, they are stunned to see Carl releasing millions of helium balloons into the air. The plan works, separating the house from its foundation and raising it above the city and into the sky. Carl takes out the wings and handles the yoke to embark on his journey to Paradise Falls. As Carl sits on the sofa to relax, he is disturbed by a knock at the door. When he answers, he finds Russell on his porch, holding on for dear life. It turns out that Russell had been looking beneath Carl's porch for the snipe he was ordered to catch. Unwillingly, Carl lets him in the house, where Russell decides to feel at home and touches everything in sight, including Carl's adventure book. Fed up with the continuous talking, Carl turns off his hearing aid, making him unaware of the thunderstorm. Russell does his best to rescue every single thing of his wife from cracking and takes a nap after binding the furniture together. When he wakes up, he is told by Russell that they are in South America. With the assistance of a GPS given to Russell by his father, they can never get lost. However, before they can even use the GPS, Russell accidentally throws it outside. To send Russell back home, Carl devises a plan to cut the balloons until they reach the ground level so Russell can find a bus. However, things don't go as planned. The house gets very low, knocking Carl down on the ground, making it impossible for him to climb up again. Russell helps him rescue the house from flying high in the sky. It is revealed that the mountain on which they are standing is in North Korea, the parallel to which is Paradise Falls. However, the balloons cannot carry two persons across the mountain, compelling Carl and Russell to walk all the way to Paradise Falls. In their journey, they find a tall bird, who Russell loves and names Kevin, and a talking dog, Doug, whose master has sent him to capture the bird as a prisoner. Although Russell wants to keep Kevin and Doug as his pet, Carl doesn't want any disturbance in his journey to his childhood dream place. Alpha, Beta and Delta also have the same collar as Doug, which helps them talk like humans. Being cunning and a strong dog, Alpha wants to find the bird as soon as possible, but he is stuck with his useless disciples. When Doug informs Alpha about retrieving the bird, he decides to follow Doug through a GPS installed on his collar. Unable to assemble the tent at night, Russell reveals that he had never actually built a tent before. When Carl asks about his dad and mom, Russell spits out that they don't visit him much because he annoys them. After hearing the story, Carl promises Russell that he can keep Kevin as long as he wants. The following morning, Carl sees Kevin on the house roof with the food, revealing that Kevin is a female bird gathering food for her children. As Kevin leaves saying goodbye to Russell, Alpha approaches with his dogs and inquires Doug about the bird. Alpha is infuriated with Doug as he has lost the bird his master deliberately wants. Considering Russell and Carl of some use to their master, Alpha takes them to his master's cave against their will. Approaching there, Carl finds that his beloved explorer, Charles Muntz, is the master who has trained the dogs to get the bird and show the world that he is right about the skeleton. Seeing Muntz, Carl cannot control his emotions. When Muntz learns that Carl and Russell are not the intruders and that his dogs have made a mistake, he invites Carl for a meal. After strapping the house with a stone, Carl enters the Spirit of Adventure, where Muntz has gathered the finest animal skeletons in South America. While having dinner, Muntz tells Carl how he will clear his name by showing the creature to those who call him a fraud. Seeing the bird's skeleton, Russell informs Muntz that it looks much like his new pet, Kevin, who loves chocolate. Carl has seen Muntz's insanity for the bird and now wants to stay away from his mess. Hearing that Carl wants to conceal the bird's information from him, Muntz shows Carl the helmets of the people who didn't obey him. As Carl tries to leave, Muntz hears Kevin's voice, revealing that the bird has returned to Carl after facing difficulty in reaching home. Muntz cannot believe that he is this near the bird, but Russell and Carl escape before he can grab them. While Alpha chases them with his dogs, Doug successfully manages to help Carl to flee with Russell and Kevin. As the dog's bite hurts Kevin, Russell requests Carl to help him return to his family. After accepting Russell's demand, the group begins their journey, unaware of the fact that Muntz is tracking them with Doug's collar. Soon, the bird finds her home, but before she can see her kids, Muntz approaches with his airship, sets Carl's house on fire and takes Kevin with him. Seeing his burned-down house, which had the memories of his late wife, Carl bursts out in anger at Russell and Doug for letting him into the problem. Now, his only aim is to reach Paradise Falls to fulfill Ellie's wish. After successfully placing his house beside the waterfall, Carl sits on the chair and opens Ellie's adventure book. While going through it again, Carl realizes that he never looked at the pages on which Ellie wanted to write about her adventure. Exploring those pages, Carl understands that living a happy married life with Carl was Ellie's adventure, making him believe that he should live his life to the fullest instead of chasing an adventure. When Carl comes out of the house to see Russell, he witnesses Russell escaping with a bunch of balloons to rescue Kevin. After unloading the furniture and making the house lighter, Carl is able to follow Russell. As Russell is already caught by Muntz and is about to fall from the plane, Carl approaches on time and rescues Russell. To retrieve the bird, Carl makes a shortcut in the airship until he manages to free Kevin. However, he is confronted by Muntz, who now wants to kill Carl. With Kevin and Doug's assistance, Carl works to go to the top, where he sees Russell flying the house near the ship after defeating the pilot dogs. Before the group can escape, Muntz shoots fire at the balloons and rushes into the house to get the bird. Luring Kevin with the chocolate, Carl manages to rescue Russell with his pets while Muntz falls from the height. The house flies in the air, but Carl has no regret as he has a family now. After taking Kevin to her children, Russell and Carl use the airship to return home with the dogs. Russell becomes the senior wilderness scout after helping the elderly, while Carl helps him to have a lovable family again. The movie ends with Carl's house being placed near Paradise Falls like Ellie's dream, while we see Carl eating ice cream with Russell and Doug sitting under their new home. Subscribe for more engaging videos like this. Hit the bell icon and be the first to watch, like and comment.